last weekend was Halloween weekend, and Halloween fell on a Friday. Now, I planned to record this on this Friday, but I ran into some technical difficulties. Regardless, Halloween was on a Friday, and when I found that out, I was ecstatic. I love Halloween. Halloween is one of the most sacred holidays to me. It's very important to my family, especially my dad's side, and I love the season. And I was so excited to find out that it landed on a Friday night. Friday night is the perfect time for a holiday like Halloween to land. It's like the stars align. Whenever a celebration gets on a weekend, it's great. So I was very excited, and I thought it was going to be a banger night, and it wasn't. It was decent. It's not like anything bad happened or anything like that, but the the turnout for what I would have expected on a Friday night Halloween was not what I saw. It's not in comparison to what I saw even just last year for the Halloween celebrations. Halloween wasn't on a weekend, but the weekend before. And I noticed a lot of people weren't even dressed up. I'm not expecting the degree I went to with my Vlad the Impaler costume, but something. Guys are just there in clothes like this, and whatever. Um, but I noticed there was just a lack of spirit, I guess. And I had some friends say the same thing before Halloween and during. Or it's just like this year, the season just doesn't feel very Halloweeny. And my dad expressed the same thing. He went out to a local bar of his back home. He, didn't stay out very late. He doesn't. Um, but he noticed, even in comparison to the year prior, just was not what he would have expected. I mean, for me, it was slim even for a normal Friday night. Um, Not like nobody was there, but it was like a just like an average night, nothing special. And to think that was going on with Halloween that night, I it got me thinking. And with people talking about the lack of spirit, and I've seen that online a little bit, and I was wondering why. Because I felt the same thing too, even leading up to the season. And I try very hard to get kind of into the spirit of holidays as they approach. Um, and I thought for me, I'm 25 years old now, and I have got just a lot going on, especially as of late, between job, content creation, uh, personal matters, family matters. I've just got a lot on my plate. And I thought maybe just I personally didn't have the time to, put on all the holiday Halloween movies I wanted and do kind of those festive activities that I wanted to get to. But it seems like everyone is kind of going through that. And of course, a holiday will never be as special as it was when you were a kid. I mean, when you're a kid, everything's magical. You believe in everything. Christmas, Halloween, all of that has its kind of sort of special magical things going on. Um, and yeah, it's way better when you're a kid, of course. But and then you get to college, and Halloween kind of goes from kind of a spooky trick or treaty type holiday to a party, very party oriented holiday. And of course, Halloween now is not going to be as fun when you're in college because, well, when I was in college, slutty outfits, joke outfits, and a hell of a lot of booze and bad news, all of that kind of stuff. That was what I looked forward to in a holiday celebration in those years. And I've definitely found less value in all of that stuff since graduating college. I'm not as hedonistic as I was, and I've developed a lot in that sense. So I don't find drinking and casual things to be to be the be all and end all anymore. And actually, I think they're pretty hollow. So makes sense that I wouldn't have as much fun going out for Halloween as I did a few years ago or as a kid. But there's something more going on. I I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about that video I made on candy corn and how candy corn kind of represents what modernity does to all holidays and celebrations, where it takes the traditions we do and it commodifies them and makes them all about buying things, selling things, and kind of just doing things because they're the tradition. Um, Candy corn is a bunch of high fructose corn syrup that originally had nothing to do with Halloween, and it just happened to get associated with that season, and now they market it and market it and market it and sell it by the hundreds of bags or probably millions of bags. I don't know. By a lot. And through that process, and it happens with Christmas, Easter, Fourth of July, any holiday you can think of in our society, it happens to where it's all about simulacrums and kind of a surrogate participation. You don't really know why you're doing the traditions that you do, how they're connected, and you lose that sense of spirituality that holidays actually had for cultures before and why they were established. Halloween, when you look at all of the traditions that went into it and the culture, it's very much a end of harvest, hard winter's coming. People really believed that the barrier between the physical and the spiritual worlds was shrinking, and you had to bring your community together and ward off evil and stockpile supplies for the winter and just be in that community together to kind of ward off the coming trying times. And of course, we don't have that anymore. But in that same video, I talked about how even though those kind of cheap traditions, that those commodified traditions aren't as spiritual and they're kind of disconnected from their history, they're still sacred to me because I grew up with them. Of course they're special. All the Halloween specials I watched, The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, and those are things my dad watched. We watched the Disney Legend of Sleepy Hollow every year. He has since he was a boy. I have since I was a boy. We watch it together. He put it on his TV. We, live states apart now, but we watched it at the same time, and that will always be special to me, and I will always remember trick-or-treating fondly and Spirit Halloween fondly. I love just going into spirit stores and walking around looking at the decorations and the costumes. All of that is still very special to me. But I can't deny that on a broader level, these Halloweens, maybe this is a watershed moment culturally where the roots of the holiday have been dissolving kind of over the decades, and now we're reaching at a point where it's really starting to collapse. And I hear this with trick-or-treating too. I hear I don't know how this works exactly. There's some kind of trunk or treat, and I guess some adults and parents don't like it. They don't think it's as special. And I have to think why that shift away from trick-or-treating happened. And I've noticed it in various neighborhoods I've been in. Not that I've lived in the most, kid-friendly areas or anything. But perceived, whether it's real or not, people perceive that it's dangerous to have your kids go door to door, and people don't want kids coming to their door, and it kind of made me think maybe it's not just the commodification of the holiday that's rotting it, but just our culture is kind of in a weird schizophrenic dissolving place because of modernity and the effects that's had on a variety of levels. Maybe we're just at a point where a shared holiday like Halloween is on the chopping block because there's so many forces kind of corroding what it is and how we express our cultural spirituality. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit in a video I'm making for TikTok tonight, where there is kind of no normal anymore, and people have never had more individual tastes, and people have never been more scattered on the things they like and their norms and their cultural values and practices. There's no overall societal normal, and people in a global world come from all over the place, from all kinds of different backgrounds and lifestyles, and they have their own cultural values and way of seeing things. And it's very hard to maintain kind of a broader monoculture with all that going on. And the internet makes it easy for you to, I didn't have to go see whatever new horror films were in theaters because I have a library of the movies I like. And everyone has a library of the movies they like, and they can watch the shows they like when they want. There's no incentive to participate in things to with the community and experience them with the community. It's all very individual tailored with the internet, and I think the same can be said for having a lot of people who have totally different values, backgrounds, whatever. And it's like they all interact with this holiday the same way. They might not feel the same about the holiday. Some of them might not celebrate it. And it just kind of all these forces come over the decades to erode a holiday. And it's not me saying it's necessarily bad, it's just observing an effect. Of course, I'd be sad to see Halloween dwindle away, but over the course of history, countless traditions and celebrations and holidays have been extinguished either by force, violent conquest of another culture, or by cultural osmosis. You bring things in from other cultures and some things phase out, religion, that kind of thing. And culture just changes over time naturally. As the traditions go down, they change. It's like a generational game of telephone, right? But it's been interesting in modernity, and I've been toying with this idea that as the 50s kind of established this current consumerist global American culture, or modus operandi, if you will, because America came out of World War II a very wealthy superpower that had suffered no destruction, well, limited destruction on its home front. When you look at the Allies who were still victors, like France and Britain, yes, they won, but they were devastated. They were bombed out, and the battles had been on their soil. Um, Even Russia, Soviet Union, came out to be the superpower that opposed us, but they had suffered catastrophic losses on their own turf. Um, that and they had to rebuild from that in a way we didn't. So we came out and we set the American dream, and we were very rich materially, and all this technology was coming out. It's the birth of the suburbs, all of these things. And this kind of secular, modern Weltanschauung was born. Not Weltanschauung, that's not the word I'm looking for. Can't think of the word I'm looking for right now. But we were culturally centered in kind of secular, and I think that's really when the consumerist holidays started really picking up steam, and the spirituality really started coming out of holidays over 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and I've been toying with something I want to dive in deeper, where I basically say that probably the mid 80s through the early 2000s was the peak that a secular society could ever advance to. Um, those are kind of seen as really good times by and large for America. Not to say there weren't problems or crime, there was still things happening that were bad, but by and large, it was a very good time for people, and that is because materially our society was so safe and there was so much excess that it was very comfortable. And as that kind of starts to fade away, along with the hollowness of a secular society, I don't know what is going to happen. I kind of think we're in a civilizational autumn where it's like the safety, security, and surplus that we have had for the past 70 years has been unprecedented in human history. Human history was so much more violent and harsh um, overall. And it's like, even if you lived a pretty normal life, as a medieval townsperson, it was likely you would have seen some kind of, even if it was small scale combat like a raid or what have you, by in your life. Most people saw violence and all of that, and had to. It's a lot harder of a world to survive in, and that's not to say. I mean, I hate when people do the whole "oh, the past was awful and depressing and everything," because maybe this we have all of this safety and security now and comfort, and yet we've never been more dissatisfied. We've never been more isolated and alone with all of our technology. We have all these ways to be interconnected, and we're just not. There's a very big lack of purpose, and comfort is destroying people. Complacency, all that. And I don't think this surplus and security is going to last, and I think there's some very telltale signs it's going to start crumbling. But it won't happen suddenly. And it's kind of the whole, what I'm trying to make here. The death of a holiday like Halloween is something that will take decades upon decades upon decades, and the roots of what I saw last weekend began in the 50s, 60s, 70s. We don't understand that these big societal changes and cultural evolutions and everything, the first, second, third, fourth order consequences, they go way down the line, and it'll take generations to fully realize where everything is going. So I don't think Halloween is going, it's not like all of a sudden it's going to be off everybody's calendars next year. But 20 years, 30 years, it's probably going to look a lot different than it does now, if it's still around. And in a century, who knows? Um, could could if this if we keep kind of our surplus society, and technology continues to do what it does and all of that, I would say it'll virtually just get people just stop caring, and it'll just be one of those quaint things of the past. But if the world gets harder and we go kind of a Western Roman Empire slash Balkanization path in the next 100 or 200 years, next couple centuries, maybe Halloween will be resurgent with as we go through an ordeal of savagery and relearn our barbarian nature. Maybe Halloween will come back as a more viscerally violent and fearful holiday that isn't defined by candy corn, but by the things it was more originally defined as, which is warding away evil and the bad times and circling the wagons of your community and all of that. So it'll be interesting to see over the coming holidays or coming years what Halloween and other holidays will look like as our civilization kind of teeters at a really interesting moment where it's going to be very hard to predict where it goes next, but it's probably going to be a very big shakeup from what we think is normal. And it's probably going to trend more towards the baseline of human nature and existence, and maybe it should. And that's something I talk about, especially in my last video, not with Jonas, love the guy, but the video before that where I discuss kind of tribes and transients. You can hear more of my coherent thoughts on all of that there. This is really seeing Halloween as a microcosm. Halloween 2025 is a microcosm of our culture going into a really uncertain transition period, and I think it's going to be difficult for some people to accept where things go. And it'll just be interesting to see. And for me personally, I've want to genuinely connect with the spirituality of the holidays I go through and pass that on to my community, friends, family. But as I said in my candy corn video, I am absolutely inseparable from all the cheap traditions. I'll always buy candy corn and carve pumpkins and watch those horror movies, and that will still be part of my traditions that I pass on, hopefully. Um, if we go Fallout mode and I'm in an irradiated trench, fighting super mutants, yeah, maybe I won't be throwing on the old Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown for the kiddos. Um, but now we're getting a little silly. Um, but yeah, what have you all noticed about the Halloween spirit and just the holiday spirits in general as you get older and see more and more online culture kind of change and splinter things? I'd be very interested to hear your Halloween weekend experience, and your thoughts regarding culture, civilization, how it all relates to Halloween. But thank you. These journals are very unscripted, kind of first time thoughts on the matter. So I probably didn't articulate everything I wanted to articulate or in the way that I wanted to, and there's still a lot I have to kind of reconcile with my greater ideas about culture and our civilization and all these forces and factors that are changing it at a rapid pace and everything. So nevertheless, it's nice to get these ideas out and really connect it with a personal experience. I was very disappointed in Halloween of 2025. I loved my costume. I thought that was great. But people were not in the spirit, and I wanted to explore why. So I hope you all had a very good Halloween holiday, safe and fun and festive. And I will catch you guys either with a podcast episode or a fully scripted video within the next week. So, cheers.